Hello, and welcome to New Beginnings Start Today, the podcast for people who want to grow deeper in their faith in the Lord. I'm your host, Dr. Douglas Keffer, a minister, clinical pastoral counselor here in Roanoke, Virginia, and I have a passion for helping people live their faith. Today we're going to talk about teaching commandments and how you can teach your children to obey the rules and live happily day after day. Let's get started. When I was a child, I learned very early that there were certain things that I just did not do. Lie to parents or anyone, steal anything that was not mine, be disrespectful to my elders, smoke, drink, tell dirty jokes, swear, or curse. If I did any of these things, I knew that there would be punishment rendered, and usually in the form of a whipping of my bottom. That was a real deterrent, as I did not want a whipping. They hurt. I am glad to say that I do not remember getting too many whippings, as I was a quick learner. There were times, though, I certainly deserved the whipping I got because I had broken the rule or the rules that I knew that was put in place to ensure that I did what I should do. What I didn't deal with and if I didn't, I dealt with the consequences of that. King Solomon set this principle up in Proverbs 4. And verses 1 through 4 when he writes, "Hear, my children, the instruction of a father, and give attention to know understanding. For I give you good doctrine. Do not forsake my law. When I was my father's son, tender, and the only one in the sight of my mother, he also taught me and said to me, let your heart retain my words, keep my commands, and live." Unquote. We are told here that it is the responsibility of the parents, both fathers and mothers, to teach their children that there are rules that they are supposed to know and understand, that the parents have every expectation that their children are to obey those commands, those rules that they set up. Many parents reading this admonition would and have told me, "Dr. Keffer, are you serious? That sounds a little too strict for my liking." Then these parents wonder why they are having to deal with the issues they would come to me for help for. I want to help you parents see the importance of teaching God's commands to your children, so they will have a foundation on which to build their lives and know truly the difference between right and wrong. One day, Jesus was asked by one of the teachers of the law, "Of all the commandments, which is the most important?" "The most important one," Jesus answered, "is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these." Mark, the 2nd chapter, verses 28 through 31. Jesus wanted this teacher of the law to really see what God required of his people, and that it was to obey his commands. When we look at the progression of what Jesus taught, the most important command was he covered the whole person's being, starting with the heart. That is significant because everything we do or say starts in our hearts. This is validated when we are told, "Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life." Proverbs 4:23. Then our soul comes next because we are eternal beings. He then wants us to take how we think into account because it is how we make decisions of what we are going to do. He wants us to understand that when we put this process in the right perspective, we then see what we put our strength into doing it and to do it day by day. When we live like this and obey God's will for our lives, we truly want to see our neighbors experience that same kind of love and care as what we do from God the Father. Teaching our children these commands means we must believe them ourselves. As you search your heart and mind to see the importance of teaching them, the writer in Deuteronomy tells us, "And these words which I command you today shall be in your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up." Chapter 6, verses 6 and 7. He goes on and tells us to talk about them when we are at home, when we are walking, when we lie down at night, when we get up. In short, we are to be teaching God's truth to our children all the time. These commandments are expectations that God's truth to our children are ones to live by. I really want to challenge you parents to evaluate what your children see you investing your time and your money into. I have taught people this principle over the years. People pretty much do what they want to do and spend their money on what they pretty much want to have. I believe this is true. And it makes all of this vitally important to your children to see you investing in that which has eternal value. Do your children see you sit down and write a check or do online giving to your church on a consistent basis? I cannot tell you the importance of having a church home for your children to go to and learn more about the God that you serve. I grew up in the church all my life. I was taken to church and put in the nursery a little after I was a week old with Mrs. Nellie Leedy as the head of the nursery. My parents took us to church and did not send us. I would see my mother during the week sitting in our dining room with her teacher's quarterly studying her women's adult Bible school lesson for the class that she was going to teach that Sunday in our preacher study. I grew up in that Sunday school, attended the youth group on Sunday evenings along with many of my friends that I went to school with as well. The Vanderbilt Church of Christ in Vanderbilt, Pennsylvania was my church home until I graduated high school and I went off to college. I am forever grateful to my parents for setting the example that was important for us children to learn to do. Obey what they taught us because they were being obedient to the commands they had been taught. Do your children hear you talk about what you have been learning from your personal devotions, or what you felt God was saying to you in your daily prayer time this morning? How are you teaching them to know that doing what is right all the time, or as best as they can will allow them to really appreciate what they see you doing in your personal life. Jesus is teaching his followers how important it is to have a spiritual awareness at all times with how we spend our day. Our society is screaming at us that these kinds of rules or commands are so outdated, that living by a moral ethic is just nonsense, and it has no place in such a sophisticated world with all our technology and the advances we are seeing all the time around us. This is supposed to be to make our lives better and more relevant. Yes, more relevant. To meet the demands that life is throwing at us all the time. What we are really seeing is the exact opposite, and it is alarming at how disconnected parents are with their children, and vice versa. When we live by these commands, it allows the people who watch how we live see the difference God makes in our lives. I truly believe we can make a difference in our communities by being serious about obeying these commands to the best of our abilities. We are not expected to be perfect, but God does expect us to live by these rules, these commands, and he will bless us as he rewards faithfulness. We will see a change in what is being reported on tonight's nightly news. It will truly be for the better. Go ahead, Mom. Go ahead, Dad. Teach away. Thank you for listening to this episode, and I want to invite you to contact me and share how you're teaching your children to obey God's commands in their lives. If you're seeing this on YouTube, please click the subscribe button and the like button, and click on the share button and share it with all your friends. This would be so helpful to me. Tell me about other issues you would like me to address by leaving your comments, and you can email me at drdouglaskeffer@gmail.com. Until next time, God bless each of you.